Everyone that's here, we'll get a lot into the digital transformation across all things sports. With panelists up here, I got Dan Fennell, and serves as the Senior Director of Strategic Partnerships at Microsoft. And then also, we've got Jeff Hansen as the General Manager of All Brand Strategy at Microsoft. And so before I get in, would love if you guys could talk a little bit about yourselves and what those titles actually mean and what you guys do at Microsoft.
Awesome. Cool, thank you. Hey, my name's Dan Fennell. I think I have one of the coolest jobs at Microsoft in that I get to work with our partnerships across all the sports leagues, teams, athletes, as well as lots of other we call them ISVs or technology providers, and so we try to help work with them. I take all of the different assets that Microsoft has on the technology side, and I bring it in to help these partners be successful in their business.
And Jeff?
Cool. Hello, thanks for being here. Jeff Hansen. I'm a bit of a Microsoft lifer. I'm coming up on 26 years with the company. And then this is the moment where you ask me if I started when I was 14 years old.
Yes, yeah, it was actually exactly. 7 years old, right?
Yeah, exactly. No, the gray hair gives it away. Yeah, so I run what we call the Microsoft Brand Studio. I also have a very cool job. I won't say it's cooler, but it's really fun.
Well, you're Dan's boss, so that makes it cooler.
What's that?
Well, you can be Dan's boss, so
no,
that makes
he's
it
my
cooler.
he's my boss. He tells me what to do. So my team, we really have three responsibilities. So our product, if you will, is the Microsoft brand. So we manage the Microsoft brand globally, as well as our oversee our entire portfolio architecture. So there's a brand strategy function. I also have a creative team. So most of the materials that you see from Microsoft, videos, logos, photography, sonic branding, et cetera, my team either does that or guides that work. And then the area of responsibility that's most relevant to this conversation is my team oversees our global brand partnerships and sponsorships.
Got it. Yeah. And clearly both of you guys have a big passion for sports, so I think before I get into some of the questions specifically on the topic, would love if we could start, call it an icebreaker, what have you, but would love to know kind of your earliest sporting event memory. Dan, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, no, I'll go. So I think it was back when we had the Kingdom. I'm in Seattle, and the Kingdom was there, and I remember sitting up in the nosebleed, complete 300 level, out in the middle of nowhere session in the game that Randy Johnson threw 20 strikeouts. And so that was incredible to watch him play, watch him just dominate a complete game. It was cool to just watch him completely own it.
Very cool. Jeff, what about you?
Yeah, so I'm a Northwest native, so Seahawks is my earliest experience. I actually lived in Spokane at the time. I was really young when the Seahawks actually became a team, and so their practice facility used to be out there. So Jim Zorn and the Seahawks put on a pigskin rally where the kids could come and work out with the Seahawks players before their first season started. So I remember that. So that's my oldest. I'll tell you my most recent. It actually just struck me this weekend. I was having an interesting conversation with my wife. 2 years ago, I picked up boxing.
Okay.
So I started boxing with my son, and I got out of the gym on Saturday, and I kind of looked in the mirror. I'm like, oh, I think I'm okay. She won't notice. And I see my wife, and like within seconds, like, what did you do to your face? So I started explaining to her, well, there's this drill that we do where you stand with your hand behind your back, and you have your partner punch you in the face.
Yeah, why not? Of course.
And your whole goal is to not blink. And so it's really easy to have somebody punch you in the face. It's a lot harder to not blink, and I guess I kind of messed up a little bit.
I like it.
I think I'm good now.
So after McGregor, Mayweather, we may have a Hansen takes winner.
Yeah,
all right. Let's dive into some of the digital transformation talk. I have seen, I think everyone here, Microsoft becoming much more involved, or at least it feels that way in sports in recent years. Would love if you guys could talk about, maybe Jeff, start with you, kind of what exactly are you doing and why sports?
Yeah, great. So you're absolutely correct. We've been much more active with sports partnerships in recent years, and actually partnerships writ large. So we do a lot of partnerships in other categories. We've done a lot of work over the last year and a half, 2 years with directly with musical artists. We've done a lot with art institutions and artists themselves. We do a lot with nonprofits and kind of the social good space. And the why, at risk of kind of stating the obvious, is we've learned these partnerships are a very powerful way for us to build our brands, to tell our stories, and so they're increasingly becoming a really important and bigger part of our overall marketing mix. And then maybe I'll take a second to just kind of tell you how we approach
absolutely.
it, and you can provide some details. So I guess I'll first start off by saying we have a pretty strong bias against traditional sponsorships. And I'll overemphasize this just to make the point. Clearly, sponsorships are important for many brands. Many companies can be very powerful. Just so happens, given the nature of most Microsoft businesses, if we do a traditional sponsorship, it's really just paying for awareness of one of our brands or one of our products. And for most of our brands, most of our products, we don't have an awareness problem. Microsoft is well recognized. Most of our products have really high awareness: Windows, Office, Skype. And so just the traditional sponsorship model in most cases doesn't really work for us. So instead, we shifted gears, and we're really looking for true partnerships. And how we think about a partnership is okay, let's have deep conversations with an entity. It could be a league, it could be a team, it could be an athlete. And to understand, hey, how do they want to advance their business? What opportunities are they looking at? What challenges are they looking at? And do they value Microsoft, our technology expertise to help them further their goals? And so if there's a fit there, then that's the kind of partnership we want to have. And it's really based on a strong product truth. So we want to do real work that's meaningful and tangible and authentic, and that kind of creates a win-win situation. It helps the partner advance what they're trying to advance, and it creates great content and storytelling for us and our company and our brands. And so, of course, we want to do that work with partners in categories where there's lots of people who have a lot of a passion about the topic or the partner. And so there, it is obvious to us that sports, there is just something special about sports and kind of the passion, sometimes craziness it ignites in people. And so so sports have been very important for us.
Sports are also, they're absolutely in a moment where they're trying to transform. So almost everybody in this room is looking at a spot where how can I make my business more efficient operationally? How can I compete better on the field or on the course? Or what can I do to innovate to take this game to the next level to grow more fans and increase our fan base? And so I find that sports leagues are looking for this transformation. They're looking for this change themselves. And it's also, Microsoft is in a unique position to be able to actually contribute to that success and to be able to contribute to every one of those things along the spectrum, whether it's your back of the house using Office and Microsoft Teams to sort of run your fundamental core business, to advanced, future-looking technologies around mixed reality or artificial intelligence. And so those are the areas where we get to play.
Yeah, maybe on that note, one of the things I find really interesting, we talk about internally at Wasserman, is kind of sports being one of the true kind of last TiVo-proof events, maybe award shows as well when you're talking linear TV. But tell me about kind of the affinity or need of the passion around it being live, and how that plays into your approach and partnerships, and it being live on television or kind of live through live streaming. But what's the impact there? How do you guys look at that as you enter into your partnerships?
It's kind of a marketing question, so yeah, marketing guy. No, you hit it exactly right when I said, hey, these types of partnerships are becoming increasingly a more important part of our overall marketing mix. That's one of the absolutely key reasons. I mean, it continues today that our biggest challenge from a marketing perspective is capturing people's attention. Yep. And media is absolutely still being disrupted. You have OTT, you have the ability, honestly, I have teenage sons. I don't know anybody younger than me who in the most cases watches commercials unless it's a sporting event or something like the Grammys or something like that. So the short answer is, yeah, it's really, and then to have the end-to-end of actually we're doing something meaningful with a team or a league, and then kind of amplify that through advertising. So let's take NFL as an example, right? Like that surface on the sideline scenario is transformational. You think about how QBs and quarterbacks are using the Surface device. There's no more playbooks. It's real time. They can go back and forth. They can zoom in on the videos, et cetera. That's really compelling. So to have that in the game and then be able to talk about it online through social and as an ad spot within an NFL game broadcast, that mix is super powerful for us.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, and I think you bring up the NFL, but would love, talk about some of the other examples that you guys are doing in sports. I know you have many.
Yeah.
Jeff.
We can be completely spontaneous
and
actually show you some examples, and then before we start talking through them. So we brought a video. We'll run the video if Jasmine can hear me. Let's go ahead and roll tape.
It's a spontaneous.
partnership between Microsoft and the PGA Tour will enhance our capabilities to better serve PGA Tour fans throughout the world.
The new playing field is the world, and the Microsoft Cloud is giving us the opportunity to build this virtual structure.
With the VR experience, we're trying to give people an experience that felt very sacred and trying to bring a different kind of value.
Microsoft has really ushered in that next era of technology for us. It's really given NASCAR a boost of confidence.
At KXP, we're always interested in exploring new technology. We're fearless with that. It's an incredible, immersive, interactive experience where you truly feel like you are inside the music.
Being able to do this trip required a team. It's the only way that it was possible to achieve something so ambitious.
Cool. You really don't do much.
No.
A few things.
Yes.
What's your favorite there?
Yeah, I do. It's hard. There's a lot. Well, first I'll do a plug for our partners at AG, so the Amgen Tour and Microsoft Square down there. It's a fantastic one. One that I'll point to as a favorite for a very specific reason is our partnership with Special Olympics International. So one thing, hopefully you saw across all these examples, this mantra for us of, hey, the product truth, and that there's a meaningful, tangible, authentic product truth there. So we put hopefully enough gratuitous product shots in the video to bring that point home. And the reason we do that is we know from our research that there are certain scenarios, certain showcases that can help us move the needle on perceptions of our products and of the company. And there's 3 of them. And so whenever we set up a partnership, we try to make certain we're going to at least hit a home run on one of those 3, if not multiple. So the first one is just kind of surprising and delighting people and fans of whatever topic it is. And so you can kind of put that in an innovation bucket. The second one is just making certain it's something that's relevant to either a target audience or large numbers of people. And then whenever possible, doing good. And so whenever we can weave that in, we really like to do it. And so back to your question about a favorite with Special Olympics, part of why they're my favorite is we kind of hit the trifecta with them on all 3 of those. And so I'll tell that story a little bit. So kind of in the innovation bucket, very quickly, one of the first projects we worked on with them is this games management system. And it's kind of a misnomer because not only is it used to run their games, but it's essentially their entire database on all their millions of athletes. And so relatively quickly, we were able to kind of rebuild that system and allow them to do things that they never thought possible. So for example, one of the attributes in their player oath is around, hey, I want to do my personal best. And so for the first time at the LA Summer Games 2 years ago, enabling them to report real time on when an athlete hit their personal best and having that shared out over their social network. A lot of these athletes, they're coming from all over the world and their family doesn't travel with them, so super compelling for them. And other scenarios we're looking at, they have an initiative called Healthy Athletes. So when they have their big summer and winter global games, at that moment, they're the biggest provider of healthcare services for people with intellectual disabilities. So we're really looking at scenarios like, okay, all this data we generate through healthcare, hey, tied to the games management system. So what insight can we gain in terms of how an athlete is training, how an athlete performs, the healthcare services they need when they show up to the games. And so there's a bunch of great innovation scenarios we're looking at with them. In the relevance bucket, clearly there's hundreds of millions of people around the world who are directly or indirectly impacted by intellectual disabilities. So just the whole Special Olympics movement is very personally relevant to them. And then in doing good, we're just very honored that we're able to help this amazing global nonprofit. And so back to your question of one of my favorites.
Right.
It's an amazing organization. And again, we kind of hit that trifecta of the showcases that are important to us. So it's a real win-win.
When we were in the back talking, one of the things that I thought stuck out to us was around just that heartbeat of authenticity. Could you talk a little bit about
Yeah, no, it's music to my ears. I mean, my team is probably sick of how often we talk about authenticity, but we know, well, back to a point that you made is selfishly a part of these partnerships is to generate content, generate storytelling that really breaks through, right? And so one trick with that is attach it to things that people are passionate about. But if you attach it, we're absolutely certain if you attach it in a way that is not authentic, it's gimmicky, you're actually doing more harm than good. And so the authenticity is super important for us selfishly, but it's also part of the win-win, because when we're doing meaningful, authentic work, it's benefiting the partner and it's delivering on kind of the content and the stories that we need. So you're absolutely right, authenticity is the key. And it even comes down to just, like, do we share the same values as the partner that we're working with? You know, is our mission supportive or consistent with theirs? And so authenticity is also multi-layered.
So the title of this talk is Digital Transformation. And I'm a huge nerd and automatically think Optimus Prime and the movies, but I know it's not exactly that for you guys. But would love in your own words, like, what does digital transformation mean to Microsoft?
You want me to start with it?
You start with
So it's not Transformers, it's
Transformers. They could have used your help, though.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, digital transformation, honestly, it's a bit of a buzzword, right? It's a nice handle for us. It's not, I mean, it's not a new phrase. It's been around for a while. What is new, though, is the technology that exists today, and that's growing incredibly, that really can help organizations transform in ways they never thought possible. You mentioned some of it earlier: machine learning, artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, right? So having all these devices and objects in our life that are intelligent. Those are all very real, already very powerful today, and any one of them on their own is actually pretty compelling, pretty impactful. Where we're seeing the big transformation is those things working in concert, the confluence of those technologies. And so what we kind of focus on, or the pattern that we see when we're working with organizations, we see organizations that are being very successful in their digital transformation. They're doing at least some combination of four things. They're using the technology to engage with their customers and their fans in ways that they never could before, so much deeper relationship there. They're using the technology to empower their employees. They're using the technology to really optimize their business operations, just how they run their business overall. And they're using the technology to really transform their products and services. And so when we think of digital transformation, it is that combination of merging and growing technology attached to kind of real business and organizational factors, and kind of bringing that together.
You got an example for me, Dan, how that comes to life?
Yeah, I got a bunch of them. I spent this weekend in Sonoma watching the NASCAR race.
Sounds rough.
It was tough job. Like
That's
I said, I think I got the best job.
Yeah, the best job.
Yeah,
I wasn't in Sonoma, but
yeah, it was awesome. And we got to sit in what's called the NASCAR Technology Hub, which is sort of their fan experience, or it's a fan experience area for some of their partners. And they showcased a lot of the tech that we've been working on with them for the last couple years. And it spans all four of those areas. I mean, they started, when we first started working with them, it was around, hey, we've got a super inefficient paper-based process for vehicle inspection. It would take hours and hours, and papers would get lost, and they'd have to go back to different haulers to find them. And it just was a mess for them to actually organize and run. And then now we've got them stood up on just a great, simple, relatively simple app experience for their officials to be able to go through, and then every car is just able to get tagged, and then all of that data is just fed straight into the cloud, right back down to every other team and everybody else. So it's cut that process in half and given them a lot of information. So that's a way that they're operating their business more efficiently now that they're doing that. And they've taken that and they've extended it into race control. So from down in the pits to up in the booth, where they're ingesting multiple data sets, whether it's scoring, points, track speeds, penalties, all the different data sources that come in. They're now able to take that and run the race all in one experience, one display that anybody can then access. So I think, and so from them, it's how they're running their sport and making it a faster sport has been fantastic. They also have completely adopted all sorts of technology inside their shop, whether it's using Surface for their day-to-day productivity or Office or Microsoft Teams. It's been just fun to see them riff and iterate on just how you can be more productive as employees. And then they obviously fans are what power their sport. And so for them, they've spent a ton of time with us on how do we continue to innovate from a fan experience perspective, not only trackside, but then creating an experience for people who can't be at the stadium every weekend, and they want to be able to consume the race, whether it's on a second device through the TV, through the Xbox. NASCAR's they've covered across all areas of digital transformation, and I look forward to what's next for them.
Yeah, definitely find that one of the more interesting kind of partnerships in sports, of all of them. But curious, because you mentioned a couple things there of basically going from paper to technology. Clearly an education gap. Like, what logistically, operationally, how do you come in and work with a partner? Do you train them? Do you just go here, hand it off, figure it out? Like, what's that process? Because that's a lot of tech that you're overhauling, kind of how they run their business and run their sport.
Yeah, and it's non-trivial. There's a lot new for a lot of people.
Right.
And in the case of the officials who are used to clipboards and paper, they weren't sure how to run this and how do I deal with this new technology. So it's a little bit of both. Sometimes it depends on the partner, depends on the sport, and depends on what their level of engagement is. In the case of, I'd say, what makes it successful is when they're actually investing in that space. So the officials were willing to give up the time and to learn and educate, and then we could help them with that. Fortunately, it was relatively simple. The officials were keenly a part of, or deeply in part of, how that app was designed, so that they understood it, just how they think about tracking of a vehicle inspection. And so it was super key to include them in the process early on, so then the training actually was less going forward. But then, yeah, in some cases, we're going to offer some direct assistance helping if somebody's learning how how do I work inside of Azure? I'm not familiar with that. What are some changes that I need to be aware of? They tend to find that it's actually not as complicated as it might seem.
No, I think that's all good stuff, and NASCAR's a great example, but would love you have a bevy of them. Tell me a couple other ways maybe Microsoft is helping to transform sports outside of NASCAR.
Did you want to start with?
No, go ahead.
Real? Okay. So I think one of the things that, boy, there's a bunch.
Got a lot.
I'm going to start with PGA Tour. So the Tour we started working with them about 2 years ago in 2015, and started really just analyzing shot data and tracking of tournament play. So as they're playing, we're capturing that. But the Tour's vision is they've got decades of past shots, scores, videos, photos, stats, all sorts of wins, just a tremendous catalog of content that isn't instantly callable if I'm giving the commentary through broadcast, or as a fan if I want to be able to remember who did that shot back at this hole back in the day. And so I think one of the things that they're looking to do is, hey, we're going to transform by taking all this data, create it into what we're calling a content relevancy engine, and then present that through broadcasters. So broadcasters have instant recognition to be able to call up whatever play or shot that they want to during the broadcast to augment their commentary. The Tour is also looking to take that and making that a great fan experience. And so I'm really excited about, we'll soon be launching on Facebook Messenger a new bot that's going to be supporting that, that's going to be feeding straight out of that content relevancy engine. So you'll be able to get almost 100 years of past golf
that's
data.
Very cool. I like that.
That's cool.
Jeff, otherwise, I mean, again, I know we have plenty. I'm a big soccer guy. I know you guys got a couple things, or football, if we're calling it global football, the real football.
I'll hit on both footballs. So let's not forget NFL. So I mentioned before, that's one of our longer standing and obviously really high profile, particularly here in the States. So it's kind of easy to lose sight of just how transformative that has been. I mentioned before the surface on the sideline, how that actually impacts the game. Also, as a part of our partnership, we built this app both on Xbox and Windows, so real-time stats. In many ways, it's transformed how people play fantasy football, et cetera. So super compelling there. The global football, so clearly our marquee partner there is Real Madrid. Credit to Real Madrid, this massively successful football club, and yet they saw the future and were really eager to work on their digital transformation initiatives with us. And so they're, again, very similar to what we were talking about, kind of the first two projects that really go hand in hand that we worked on with Real Madrid was one, just modernizing how they ran their club, how they ran their business. There was a lot of training involved there, culture change, et cetera. But then hand in hand with that was the pretty robust, multifaceted fan engagement platform that we built for them. And I say those go hand in hand because if you create all these new touch points, all this new fan data, if you don't have technology and the skills in-house to leverage that data, then why have you done it? Fan engagement has been really transformative, and I really love, you heard it slightly in that video, how they talk about it, where they talk about it's the global field, it's the global pitch, it's the global stadium. So you think about their home stadium, the Bernabeu, seats roughly 80,000 people, is always sold out, et cetera. Real Madrid has somewhere between 300 and 400 million fans globally. So the vast, vast majority of fans are never going to go to a Real Madrid game, yet they're incredibly passionate and just want to be more and more connected to the team and to the stadium. And so the way that they encapsulate the work that we've done is, hey, we've made their stadium global. We've created ways for their fans to feel more attached to the team, even down to simple things like the app that we worked on with them. A fan can kind of create their own customized replay using the cameras that are in the stadium. So Real Madrid is one. Sticking with the football theme, I'll make a plug for a session later today where you can learn about our sports performance platform and how we're working with the Seattle Reign, so our local women's soccer team, on how they're using that platform to guide and inform their training, how they're using the platform to help them reduce player injuries, et cetera. So that's another two that I'd point to.
Yeah, I think the size, the breadth of how many Real Madrid fans, 300, 400 million, it's crazy, but I'm a giant Madrid fan, live on the West Coast. I want a HoloLens tour of the Bernabeu. I want to know what it's like. So
no, it's a super...
we add that to the product roadmap in addition to the bot you got coming out?
Yeah, we'll, I think I have one of my Real Madrid teammates in here, so we'll look at that. But no, it's super compelling. So they have a museum in the stadium. Over 1 million people a year tour that museum. By museum standards, that's huge. Over 50% of that is international people. The vast majority of the people going to the stadium to go in the museum will never go into the rest of the stadium. And so again, great example of to use HoloLens or other VR, AR type technologies to really further immerse a fan into that experience, and maybe further out in the future, like with HoloLens. I'm actually watching the game in the HoloLens in the stadium, pick my seat, whatever it is.
That'll be amazing.
Yeah.
Now, is Madrid, were they in a similar position to NASCAR, where there was a lot of education or training? Were they staffed ready? Because, you guys brought a lot of tech to them. They have 400 million fans. So were they already staffed up in the right way to kind of fully engage and take advantage of your tech? Or was there, again, an internal build, if you will, on their side that needed to go along with it?
It was a mix. They were, particularly compared to some partners we work with, they're fairly modern in their use of technology, but there was more we could do there. But to give you one example of what you're talking about, and it's not even just, hey, going in and training people, it's them fundamentally thinking through, okay, what does this digital transformation mean for my organization? Like I was going to pile on earlier and say, a lot of the partners I work with, the biggest part of the digital transformation initiative is the culture change and the behavior change, and even looking at your corporate structure. So in the case of Real Madrid, when we started with them, I believe their digital social team was 3 people. Today they have 30. Right, but of course you need that if we're going to create all these new touch points to engage fans, all this data and insight about your fans, you need to staff up and to unlock that value. And so again, to varying degrees, we see this culture change, behavior change being hugely important. Unfortunately, with Microsoft, both our resources in-house along with our partner network, there's tons of training opportunities, and we can get people in their hands-on helping the organization.
No, in kind of the constant string of, we've got a lot of good, I think, consistent themes here with these successful partnerships, but curious, if you feel that there is a key ingredient that maybe is the true north or the guiding light for why these examples we've been talking about and other ones have been so successful. Maybe Dan, start with you.
Yeah, I'll go. Yeah, no, it's I'd say the key theme that I've seen that helps these sports partnerships work is when the league, the team, comes to the table with a sense of here's what we want to transform. Here's where we want to grow our sport, engage our fans, revolutionize our business, compete more effectively. So it's looking at those when they've got a purpose as to what are they hoping to actually do is super valuable. And they want it bad enough that they're actually going to invest in it as well. And because then we can invest in the technology and we can really help to bring a lot of that to life. And it goes back, and Jeff is constantly banging on me when it comes to thinking about relevance and authenticity. Because if it's just sort of creating a product placement, that's not valuable from a marketing perspective. But if we can actually solve a real life business problem, even if it's maybe a somewhat boring one, you know,
right.
It's not necessarily some sexy thing that's on the field, that's a super valuable ad that we can bring to the table.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I think that's, in terms of key ingredient, that's exactly right. And so maybe to stick with the analogy, some of the spices that go, you know, to service of that ingredient. Some of the
I was going to say bartender, cocktail.
Okay, there we go too. We can do that. That's
5 o'clock somewhere.
That's right. So some things to make that possible. So there has to be that desire, and there has to be something real there. But then the organization, it absolutely has to be a priority, like and across the organization, across, up and down. You know, so the priority needs to be there. And then the one I hit on before is the not only willingness, like expectation that, you know, well, transformation by its definition, there's going to be a change here. And so we're ready, willing, and able to make that change. That's also another necessary ingredient.
So then on the flip side, like a natural follow-up is, have you ever passed on what you thought maybe was a good opportunity, but it seemed like they weren't truly going to be a part of this process to co-create with you and just kind of wanted to check in some logos?
Yeah, you hit on another one. That co-create, that's also important, like that partnership mentality as an ingredient. And we've hit on this a number of times. Like it doesn't work if the partner's like, hey, we're not a technology company, so you know, hey, Microsoft, go take care of this for us.
Right.
Or conversely, is like, oh, hey, here's a bunch of devices in Azure, and like, you know, party on, have fun. That doesn't work. And so we need to roll up our sleeves, work together, and invest in each other. So that co-create is absolutely important. And you're exactly right. Like there's been several super interesting opportunities, both in sports and elsewhere, where at the end we ended up passing on it because either they seem to be giving lip service, we're not clear that it's really a priority, or boy, they seem to think it's a priority and they want to partner, but then it doesn't seem like they're willing to make any change at all, and so we don't think they'll be successfh in the long term because they're just not going to be able to absorb all this work that we do. And so, yeah, we do. I think we're in a fortunate position where we're able to keep a pretty high bar and say, hey, are these conditions in place for the partnership to be successful?
The one tweak that I might make would be pass from a sponsorship sort of like a marketing partnership perspective, but we love customers, right?
Yeah,
right.
So in that sense, I want to empower and make the sports as successful as I possibly can. And so maybe we won't be able to talk about the great stuff that's happening, but we'll definitely continue. We want to help.
No, that's a really good point. And kind of maybe in a similar vein, like when you guys are having those initial or early on discussions, and maybe it is the property or coming with, here are some problems that we think that we have. Like, do you have any good anecdotes of where, wow, that was really surprising. I didn't know that was an issue, where maybe they've posited something and then it could be somewhere where Microsoft could come in and help. Or it was just absolutely aspirational, pie in the sky, like we want a projection map on the moon. You know, do you have any good, like, fun anecdotes of when you guys, and maybe Dan, I know you're kind of in these a lot, of like just being surprised or just generally curious and happy to hear those type of thoughts or questions?
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like I've riffed on NASCAR a whole bunch, and there was a whole bunch of ones that I was just dumbfounded by their ideas and what they wanted to do. I'll flip to, just for a little diversity, we did some work with Arcos. Arcos Golf, they make sensor technologies, and they've got a sensor technology. You put this little piece in your club, and you're able to, it tracks your swing. It incorporates all of your swings across all of your clubs, across all of the different courses that you play on. And then it looks for all the other players who have played that same hole in different weather conditions, and it learns how you've done. And so their vision was, I want to create a virtual caddy. So I'm literally walking around in my pocket with a caddy who's going to tell me, oh, don't play your 7-iron, play your 5-wood. Or play your woods instead of your irons.
You can tell Dan and I are big golfers.
Golf.
We're like,
it's not
going to call it a match or round? No,
yeah.
Pain and suffering.
Exactly. So, but to be able to say, hey, you're going to be, 36% chance you're going to get a birdie on this hole,
right?
Is outstanding if you use this club versus that club. And so it's an exciting, that was for me one of the most interesting ways to transform. You got to literally have a professional caddy in your pocket.
I like that. So you, Jeff?
Well, I'll start with a general observation.
Yeah.
I mentioned this before. Paper.
Paper.
It's just shocking how often we run into paper.
People still use it.
And what they're trying to do with it, and just like I mentioned, the Special Olympics on the games management system. Like at first, it was like you run hundreds of live sporting events a year around the globe, and you can't report results, personal best, real time. Well, then because you see all these people running around with binders of paper, and like the system actually doesn't get populated till later that night at best, or days after the event, et cetera. And again and again and again, you see these paper scenarios is crazy. So there are some, fortunately there's some where it's just a low bar, like, okay, come in, let's digitize that, let's get you trained, and let's modernize from there. And then there are those ones that are super complex. Like one, outside of sports, there was a video up there of the MUDA, the Museum of Digital Art. And so we did a mashup of technology, our Kinect sensor, and of course them being creative, so a swing, and then some worldwide telescope data. So actually, so the installation is actually you use this swing to swing across the surface of the moon. And then once you're done with the moon, then it launches you into space, and then you're exploring the universe just based on the speed and the pitch of your swing. So it runs a full gamut. Let's get rid of paper, and then let's travel the universe and everything in between. So
I like it. That beat my projection map on the moon. Just get a swing all the way to Jupiter. I like it.
Exactly.
Let's continue on some little future gazing. I mean, what are some trends that you see that you're just personally excited about? It doesn't necessarily need to be tied to your respective business, but kind of trends that still fall under this digital transformation. Dan, why don't we start with you on this one?
Well, the piece, I feel like we've just scratched the surface in terms of artificial intelligence and machine learning analytics, like taking all of the data that exists and being able to help it anticipate our needs and predict what's coming in the future and how I should respond to things. We're just starting that, and I feel like sports is in a unique position to be able to really innovate in this way. And a lot of the work that I'm seeing going with sports partners, with our Microsoft Research Labs, with our AI practice, is it's insane, the path that we're going. And I'd say a little farther out, but also super exciting, is just the concept of 3D content and 3D video and mixed reality experiences, and what we can create. And again, I feel like sports is in a really unique, especially when you talked about live projection and live experiences. How do you create a live experience using 3D content? There's not a lot of that available, and so how do we build that up? And I feel like that's going to transform the way I consume sports, consume live play, and change how I'm going to experience technology. So I'm excited about that.
Jeff?
Yeah, I'll just build on that. Dan is exactly right. Like those technology trends, and again, I'd say the confluence of those are also really interesting, right? And so you hit on VR, AR, Internet of Things, machine learning, and artificial intelligence, just managing big data and all that coming together, and all that mixing and matching. That would be super interesting. To maybe come at it from a different angle. Well, we touched on this before. A trend that's challenging for us, being a marketing guy, is capturing people's attention.
Right.
It's just we're in competition for attention, and so that's why we're so excited about this space. Our partnerships in sports, our partnerships elsewhere, is we feel we've proven to ourselves now through enough of these partnerships that it creates the right content. It allows us to do the right storytelling to really break through. And it's because of the authenticity attached. It's a real, it's a real thing. We're solving a real problem attached to something that people are passionate about. So again, from a marketing perspective, breaking that trend, honestly, that's kind of challenging for us. Has been super powerful for our marketing goals.
I guess on another follow-up before I think we close out here, given that there is kind of this change in how we consume media, right? There are multiple options. We have many distractions, but also I think a lot of benefits to it. And just curious with the technology, and happy to kind of give my opinion on it too, but where we started was sport being kind of such a passion point on live events, being TiVo proof. With all this tech and all this integration, do you think there becomes a point where actually going to the physical event, like going there, whether it's sport or entertainment, see a concert show, where that disappears? Or do you still think like live events will always be there and maybe surrounded by some of these enhancements? I'm curious your thoughts.
I'll jump.
Sure.
So I think the live events are going to be transformed as well to incorporate all of that great technology that you can experience at home to create an even more immersive experience for a connected fan base. Like, I feel like there's so much more that could be done even in the live experience, that as these, in the case of mixed reality, it's going to likely start at home and then sort of bring itself into the stadiums and into the venues. So I feel like live is never going to go away. It's extremely opportunistic. It's another ripe ground for transformation.
Yeah, I'm definitely in the both or and camp as well. I think that's exactly right. Technology will help both surround and the event itself. Like, you think about real-time stats that we've never had before, and depth of stats in a football game. We did something interesting with Tennis Channel at the Australian Open. So augmenting both what's happening on the court or when you're viewing at home. You know, some of the examples, the music examples we used up there, increasingly we're finding musical artists who want to use technology to make each one of their performances unique. So something as simple as the Kinect sensor feeding off the audience and the artists themselves and then generating visuals for that. So if you go and see we did VR with Childish Gambino, or you go see Washed Out or whoever else, each time you see them, the visual effect is different because the audience is different, the set list is different, the performers themselves have a different energy, and so that's just one small example of how the technology can really make the event and the experience itself more personalized and more unique and more compelling, along with all the other things that we can do to surround that and for all the people who actually can't go to the event.
Yeah, no, I agree with both of you. I'm really excited. I don't think the live event's ever going to go away. I just think it'll continue to be elevated and enhanced. And then also, you know, selfishly and personally, being from San Diego, there's a cement block called Qualcomm. If you guys ever want to come and just build a new showcase, happily we'll get some people to come check it out. It can be our test case, and maybe you can show off some of all that amazing tech that you guys have. And for the crowd, because we're going to wrap up here, tomorrow there are a lot of workshops next door. And if you haven't, the Microsoft Technology Center, I mean, we're turned around here, but right around the corner, like over there, I believe, show off a lot of these amazing toys. It's really fantastic. When you guys are there tomorrow, you'll see a lot of it. But really, thank you both for the time. Dan Fennell and Jeff Hansen, great stuff on digital transformation, and looking forward to more to come. And for people here, do we have a time on the bot, or do we want to it's coming up?
It's coming soon.
All right, I'm sure you guys will read about it, but thank you guys again. A lot of great sessions later today.
Awesome. Thanks, man.